Hello, dear viewers, and welcome to a new episode of Business Insider. I'm your host for tonight, Mohammed Abdirahim. And tonight we'll be talking about the role of biodiversity and natural reserves economics in increasing the outputs of the economy here in Egypt. And we'll be discussing this topic alongside our dear guest, Dr. Abdel Fattah Badr, and he is Professor of Plant Genetics and Biodiversity at Helwan University. A very good evening to you, Dr. Badr, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Badr. As always, please allow us, and please, dear viewers, allow us to watch a report about our main topic for tonight, and then we'll come back and start our discussion. Please stay with us.
Minister of Environment Yasmin Fuad has outlined the national strategy to develop and protect the country's nature reserves. Fuad said that her ministry is providing support for ecological tourism in Egypt's protected areas, as they have been one of the most important features of environmental work in the country during the previous period. In a statement, the minister said that its natural reserves are also one of the most important investment opportunities for Egypt. According to Minister Fuad, the Ministry of Environment is working on developing the country's nature reserves by working on 4 parallel and interconnected pathways. This includes the availability of basic infrastructure in the reserves to ensure their natural resources are protected and to ensure their sustainability. A total of 13 natural reserves have recently seen developmental works through the implementation of 10 projects which aim to raise the efficiency of the infrastructure, particularly in the South Sinai and Wadi Rayyan reserves. Moreover, the Ministry of Environment has also implemented the first phase in raising the efficiency of the infrastructure in the Saluga and Ghazal reserves in Aswan. The second pathway relies on developing legislation and regulations guaranteeing the protection of natural resources and the sustainability of the reserve's financial systems. This takes place through the issuance of Resolution 202 concerning the regulation of human uses of marine activities. Minister Fuad highlighted the importance of integrating the local communities as one of the most important axes for developing natural reserves. As part of this, programs have been implemented to develop local crafts while preserving the cultural and environmental heritages of the communities. This has led to a 400% increase in the income of local communities over the past 2 years. The minister noted that the 4th axis sees investments offered to the private sector, which will be able to invest in the natural reserves.
Welcome back, dear viewers. Thank you for staying with us, and thanks very much to Abir Hussein and Rasha Abdel Hamid for this report. We are back here with Dr. Abdel Fattah Badr, the Professor of Plant Genetics and Biodiversity at Helwan University, discussing the role of biodiversity and natural reserves economics in increasing the output in the Egyptian economy.
Thank you. I'm actually very happy that we are talking about this topic.
Yes.
Because just yesterday we were having a workshop on a project we've been doing for the last 2 years about the economy of natural resources and biodiversity in Egypt and how to transform it into a self-sustainable units. So instead of being directed by the state, it could be directed by a more efficient directory who may save some money for sustaining the protectorate. We have 30 protectorates. Of course, I wouldn't talk more, and I would like to answer the question.
All right, Dr. Badr. And speaking of the symposium held yesterday at the Environmental Research Center, Dr. Badr told me...
At the Academy of Science.
The Academy of Science and Technology. Dr. Badr told me while we were listening and watching the report that it seems that those who wrote the report were with them in the symposium.
Yes,
so I have to thank again Abir and Rasha
it's very
for
good,
this,
well written and informative report.
Thank you. Dr. Badr, let's start first by some definitions.
Yes.
What is the simplest definition of biodiversity and biodiversity economics?
Yeah, the biodiversity is a variation of life forms at 3 levels, and the ecosystem, how the ecosystem is a population or more populations living in an environment as sustainable living, and another diversity at the species level, because living organisms are classified into plants, animals, and every species is similar individuals. For example, the human being are a species, wheat is a species, barley is a species, maize is a species, buffaloes is a species.
So you're talking to us about the levels of biodiversity?
Yeah. Yes, the first diversity is the ecosystem level, where many different organisms of different types live together, and the second level is the species level, and the third level is the genetics level, and all organisms have the same genetic material, which is DNA. Although DNA in all organisms, but they differ from plants and animals, the microorganisms, and even viruses have DNA. And when they live together, the plants are the producers in the ecosystem, because they transform carbon dioxide from the weather into carbohydrates, into sugars in the plants. And this sugar is transferred to consumers, and consumers are mainly animals. And when the bodies of animals and the plants and debris and others and waste are decomposed by decomposers, which are the microorganisms. So we have 3 living groups: the producers, the plants, the consumers, the animals, and the decomposers, the microorganisms.
And all of these constitute the ecosystem?
These are the ecosystem.
Right. So Dr. Badr, what are some of the goods and services of biodiversity?
Yeah, the goods, for example, sources of food, sources of medicine, sources of wood, sources of clothes, all these come from plants and animals and so on. So they are sources for food, for medicine, for clothes, for fodder, for animals, and that's our supplies. That's the goods we need for living. The sources is the air and water and the non-living components of the ecosystems, and these are very essential: oxygen, carbon dioxide, air, water. These trees, shrubs, and these are the non-living components of the ecosystem. So the biodiversity is composed of ecosystems, species, and genes. And in the ecosystem, we have living components and non-living components. Living components provide us with the things we need to live. And also we need non-living components like air and water, and so even the sun is part of the. It's over it's the atmosphere, because atmosphere is above ecosystems. Different ecosystem form.
That's another level.
That's another level.
Dr. Badr, let's move on to natural reserves. Again, the simplest definition for natural reserves and natural reserves economics.
Yeah, natural reserves, every natural form of plants, of animals, are called natural reserves. But when they are threatened, we protect them. When they are protected, they are protected areas. We call it protected areas or protectorate.
Right.
These are natural reserves. It could be natural reserves but not protected, but we need to be careful not to overuse natural reserves, either protected or non-protected. But in Egypt, when we say natural reserves or protected areas, that means areas protected from overuse, from damage, from pollution, and so on. That's the protected areas.
Okay.
And in Egypt, we have 30 protected areas.
Okay, we'll get to them, but
Yeah.
what about natural reserves economics?
Natural reserves economics. When we ask the Prime Minister to write a decision that is protected area, like Wadi Degla in Maadi, for example, or Ras Mohammed in Sharm el-Sheikh. Actually, in South Sinai, you have 4 protected areas. In every part of Egypt, we have protected areas. When we ask for protection, this will cost the state money to protect. Some people will go there and protect and take care of this, and that it at the cost of the state. The recent approach is to make self-sustainable protected areas. We need to study the economy of the protected areas. Should we spend from the state or make it sustainable? Of course, it has visitors. Visitors are allowed to go. It may contain some valuable plants and animals and medicinal plants that we can sell. This is a source for the protected areas. So the economy of the protected areas means the protected area can be sustainable and can be actually profitable. It can be profitable if the production of it exceeds the amount of money used for its protection. And
so how can we make natural reserves self-sustainable economic use?
Yes, actually
and are there any plans to do so in the near future?
We are working on a project funded by the Academy of Scientific Research and Technology. And we are a group of the Environmental Research Council. I am the rapporteur or the chairman of the council, but we are 9 professors and young scientists and so on. And our task is to study how to make the protected areas self-sustainable, and by increasing, how to increase the profits from visitors. It's not only to make it protected, you can use it as a tourist place, and in the tourist place you can enjoy, you can make journeys, you can school visits, university visits, research visits, some hobbies can be done, and some tents you can spend one night in Wadi Degla, for example. You can travel the hills and in the area. You can enjoy looking at the plants and the animals, and these we can actually charge money. You would, like any garden, we charge money for tickets, entrance tickets, and then with this money and with other profits from the services provided to the visitors, we can develop this area and this natural resource and make it sustainable. Making it sustainable means we can develop it, we can protect it, we can keep it alive for hundreds of years to come. Not only to use it as a source of profit, but also to develop the plants, to take care of the plants, and to develop protection from other agents in either biological invasion by invasive species. You know, there's some species that are not part of the protected area. These are called invasive species. We don't like these plants to invade the protected area and replace the natural plants that we need to protect.
Dr. Badr, I want to talk more about the natural reserves that we have here in Egypt. You said there are 30 of them.
30, yeah.
What about the geographical distribution of those 30?
Yes. The first,
and the most famous,
the most
other
famous,
than Ras Mohammed,
the most famous, of course, was Ras Mohammed in the south of
Sharm
Sinai, and the islands in the sea as well, on the Red Sea, and also Dahab is important in Sinai. St. Catherine is a very famous protected area in Sinai. South Sinai has about 5. Nabg is also in the coast of Aqaba. Is very also famous because it has important plants and animals and so on. About 15–16% of Egypt is protected areas.
Wow.
Yes,
15–16%. To 16%.
Jabal Elba, for example, is protected areas. Al Gulf Al-Kibir in the southwest of Egypt is protected area. Siwa is a protected area. Also some Al-Fayoum is also protected area. Al-Prolus is a protected area. Some parts in North Sinai are protected.
And they represent 15–16% of Egypt's
total area. Of course, yesterday we have some colleagues from
at the symposium at the
at the college, including Dr. Ahmed Salama, who had worked in the protected area for years, and he is now advisor to the Minister of Environment. And of course, he has more information because he's been working in there. Every protected area has a director and has scientists. So it's a big business. It's not only just make a wall here and or something and protect this area, but it has rules and it has scientists who study how to protect. If we remember Professor Al-Qassas, the famous professor of plant ecology in Cairo University, he was the first to call for protected areas in Egypt. He keep asking President Sadat to issue rules. The rule is actually the law was 1983. The law of protected areas was 1983, shortly after the death of President Sadat.
During the Mubarak era.
But the decision was made. I remember President Sadat saying, "Look what Qassas wants and do what he wants," because he was, asking him very often, and he was advisor, an environmental advisor to the president.
Amazing, that was half a century ago.
Yes, half a century ago. So we started actually protecting our important and threatened species of plants and animals, and not only plants and animals, also geological parts. Al-Ghaba Al-Sawda, for example,
Black Forest?
Black Forest. And not Black Forest in Germany, but there is small geological combinations in the Western Desert, and also in Maadi there is Al-Ghaba Al-Mutahajjara, very close to Wadi Degla.
Okay.
It's very small place, but the stones are very old.
Hagar means rock, but I don't know. I don't know how to translate.
But many people go to Maadi and visit it, and we have Wadi Degla, 45 visitors in 22, which is 45,000 visitors in 1 year is good for Wadi Degla. And of course, Ras Mohammed had more visitors, St. Catherine has more visitors. Saluga and Ghazal in
the fossilized?
Fossilized.
Fossilized, okay.
Yeah.
The fossilized forest.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not big forest, it's a small, but that's it's called a fossil because it's a fossil. It's
Dr. Badr, so how can biodiversity and natural reserves help increase the output of the Egyptian economy?
Yes. First, plants and animals are the genetic resources for breeding new crops.
Yes.
I think we talked about this when we talked about food security. But even natural plants in Egypt is very rich in medicinal plants, particularly in St. Catherine. And St. Catherine is a very clean area. So unfortunately, we collect the plants, or some people there collect the plants and sell it to other countries for making drugs. What we can do is to actually extract the substances, the medicinal substances in these plants, and transform it into drugs and sell the drugs ourselves. So that we can increase the value of the medicinal plants in Egypt, and about half of our plants, or probably more of half of our plants are medicinal plants. We have plants for grazing.
That's a big prospect.
Yes, it's a big prospect. One problem here is we should not overgraze or harvest the plants, otherwise we'll lose the abundance of the plants. Here, protection is important, because if you leave that for the people to cut and sell the medicinal plants, or to harvest the grasses, then they may be over harvested or over grazed, and that is not good for the sustainability of the plants. We need to use our reserves as sources of drugs, sources of fodder for the animals, and also sources for new genes to develop more productive crops for our consumption as human beings. These are natural resources that can be transformed into edible forms for animals, plants, and improve our food security, or
give an added value to the
yes, that is
plants.
how to natural sources is important, because it's been there for years. It's adapted to our environment. It's important because it has some genes that we can transfer to agricultural crops and improve our agricultural productivity.
Yes, and Dr. Badr, tell me about some of the ideas that you scientists posed yesterday at the symposium at the Academic Scientific Research Center.
Objective of the project is the economics of natural resources and the protected areas. We need to value how much can we evaluate in terms of money.
Of course, there's a link with tourism here, of course,
yes,
right?
Of course, there's tourism. And our colleague, Dr. Ahmed Farghali, who is a professor and the former dean of the commerce faculty at Cairo University, he had developed some forms of evaluating the plant, the resources, and if we were actually surprised how much our resources are, because now if we discuss to the private business to direct or to deal direct what to manage our resources to make it more profitable. We need to know the value of what we have. And
you tell me you were surprised. You mean the value is bigger than you thought we had?
If you go to
nice
the
surprise.
desert, if you go to the desert and see some medicinal plants, nice to see some medicinal plants and some plants as well. But you don't actually, when you recalculate how much these plants can produce medicinal components or grazing for animals, or even the shade provided by some trees. These are values, because we need shade, we need medicine, we need food, and so on. The evaluation we did by the Professor Ahmed Farghali has actually is over what we expect, billions of dollars over 40 years, because we don't calculate for every day, for every month, for every year, but we calculated for a range of 40 years. And these can be billions of pounds. Even
so it could be a huge,
yes,
a huge
business and a huge tourist. It would also attract tourists to go there. Not only tourists from Egypt, like schools and universities and families, but also from outside. Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada and the Mediterranean.
It would add to the already rich...
and not just to go and swim, but to study the mangroves. You know, mangroves, these are plants growing in the Red Sea. These are very important. If we calculate the value, it's not only just a plant growing there. It hosts other sources of organisms. It provides, you know, the carbon dioxide is a big problem, because it makes the weather hot, and this causes climate change. And Avicennia marina, this is these plants, scientific name is called Avicennia marina, is important in capturing carbon dioxide and transforming carbon dioxide into sugar in the plants. So you actually combating climate change by growing such plants, mangroves, in the marine environment. We have marine environment, we have desert environment, we have different types of environment, and each of these environment has resources which are very valuable, and we can add more values by tourist business, or by agriculture business, or by fishing, or for development of the marine system, not only for fish, for other sources of marine organisms which are useful not only in eating but also for industry and other sources of income.
Dr. Badr, it's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, the time is up. On behalf of you, dear viewers, we thank very much our dear distinguished guest, Dr. Abdel Fattah Badr, the Professor of Plant Genetics and Biodiversity, Helwani University.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Dr. Badr, very much. Thank you, dear viewers, for watching us. Please stay with Nile TV.